Welcome back to Flow Made Simple. If you're new to Steel Mace Flow, then you're likely making at least one of these 5 common mistakes, and it could be holding back your strength, mobility, and flow. So let's solve these problems right now. The first mistake is the big blunder that I made when I started mace training 7 years ago, and it was around the weight of the mace itself. When I started out, I was lifting a lot of weights, so I figured I was strong enough to handle a heavy mace. I thought 10 pounds was gonna be way too light, so I got myself a 20-pound mace. And boy, was I wrong. I needed the light mace and not the heavy one. And I see a lot of beginners make the same mistake because it seems like 10 pounds is really light. But what you have to remember is that the 10 pounds is all the way out to the side, which makes it much more challenging. Now, the primary costs with starting with too heavy of a mace, with making this particular mistake, is that you're gonna be reducing the number of exercises you can do. You're reducing the variety because of the weight of the mace. Additionally, you're gonna be slowing your progress of learning the skills of Steel Mace Flow, again, because you have limited access to these various movements, and you're gonna be so preoccupied with just trying to perform them that you're gonna be struggling to learn new skills, learn more advanced skills over time. And additionally, you're gonna be increasing the risk of injury. A heavy mace, especially when we go through a movement like a swing, where we're generating momentum, is gonna be putting a lot of force through the shoulders, through the elbows, and through the wrists. And so if you have any limitations here within range of motion or a lack of stability, it's gonna be highlighted and you could really hurt yourself. So again, start with the lighter mace. Now, the last reason is kind of a funny one, but it is a big one, which is this. When you make this mistake, your mace isn't as portable. You can't bring it around with you. You can't go outside with it. You're limited to where you can train with it because you're not gonna wanna lug around a 20-pound steel mace. It's just not the way that it's gonna be, and I certainly struggled with that. Now, the fix is really easy. Simply get a 7 to 10-pound steel mace. This is gonna solve all the problems, and you'll be able to get a heavier mace once you're ready for it later on. Now, if you'd like all the information on which mace to choose specifically and when to increase in weight, I have that information included in my free Steel Mace Essentials ebook, which is in the description down below. So you can go get that and get yourself the right mace so you don't make this mistake. Now, the second mistake is probably gonna shock you. Most beginners start practicing 360s too soon. And I know that sounds totally wild, and I'm probably gonna get lit up in the comments for saying this, because the Steel Mace 360 is honestly the king of steel mace movements. It is the movement that helped me to heal my shoulders, to build immense strength through my upper body, and it also helped me to understand coordination in my body in a new way. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't learn the 360. I'm just saying that most beginners start it too early. In my opinion, the 360 is really more of an intermediate exercise. If you take an example like a kettlebell swing, the kettlebell swing is a hip hinge movement at its base, but it's much more complicated because instead of a deadlift, you have the weight actually swinging. And so the steel mace is at least as complex while we're swinging it in the 360 pattern. So the primary costs associated with making this mistake, with trying to force the 360 too soon, is that one, you're going to be building bad habits. You're likely going to be, learning patterns that you don't actually want to do. And whether that's instability in the body, over rotating through the upper body, having the trajectory of the swing be incorrect, over pushing the mace, there are so many different mistakes that can be made just related to the Steel Mace 360 itself. And that's why I see a lot of beginners succeed when they do the 360 a little bit later on. Now, again, that's not to say you can't do it. And in my opinion, the fix for this is simply to learn the right exercises in the right order. So you're able to mobilize the joints, reduce the risk of injury, and then be able to actually master the movement pattern so that you have it on command and you can use it in any workout without having to feel like you're struggling with it or like you can only do it when your shoulders feel at their very best. So the fix for this is to simply learn these movements related to the Steel Mace 360 in a progression. So you're starting slow and you can build it up, and then you also understand exactly what the main pitfalls are related to the 360 and know how to solve them using a specific drill that I call a tick-tock. Now, if you want all the information for these drills and for the 4 most common mistakes I see in 360s, that's also included in the free Steel Mace Essentials ebook, which you can download below. Now, this third mistake is super unexpected. Most people pick up the steel mace and want to train with it by counting reps, and this is a mistake. Now, this isn't to say that you can't count up to 10 if you're doing 360s or some very basic counting if you're doing another simple exercise. However, the mistake that I see beginners make is that they rely too much on counting reps, and it takes their mind off of the movement, off of the flow, and instead puts it into them simply counting numbers in their own head. And so this is a really big problem. It has some big costs because it's going to make us lose focus. We're going to be neglecting important cues about the actual drill or the flow that we're doing. And additionally, it's going to actually inhibit our flow state because there's always a part of our mind that's counting instead of being completely present with the physical experience of the drill at hand, with the movement at hand. And so this is a very common mistake that I see when people start programming their own workouts, and it's very easy to fix by simply using a timer. Simply use a timer to actually tell you when to start and when to stop. Because in this way, you're not focused on the speed of the movements or on doing a specific number. Instead, you're focused on the quality of what you're doing. And that's gonna help you drop into flow state and get way more out of it. Now, there are two specific solutions. You can just pull out your iPhone, use the timer there, or whatever cellular device you use. And the other one is that you can actually use an interval timer app. And this is the solution that I personally use with all of my students in my 8-week challenge and in my fellowship. Every workout is programmed that way. And again, if you download the free Steel Mace Essentials ebook, you can download the exact app that I use so you can use the interval timer in your workouts. So definitely use the timer, don't count your reps. Now, mistake number 4 is huge for all of Steel Mace flow training. Whether you're on day 1 or day 1,000, this is essential. Every Steel Mace movement should be done with precision. I see a lot of beginners, especially in a movement like a prayer switch, focus on kind of throwing the mace. They're overutilizing momentum and they're not in precise control of the mace in all moments. And this is a huge mistake, and the cost of it is that you're going to be slowing your own progress. You're actually increasing risk of injury because, again, this is a steel mace. If you lose control of it, you can hit part of your body or something around you and damage it very substantially. So having precise control isn't just a nice to have, it doesn't just make the flow look better, but it's actually important from a safety perspective and in terms of actually helping us to advance more rapidly. Because when we are more precise with our movements of the mace, even in a very basic movement like a prayer switch, then we're able to do much more advanced movements with more precision as well, because we're always in control of the mace, especially, key point here, the balance point. And that is something that, again, is talked about in that free Steel Mace Essentials ebook. Now, to solve this problem, there's 2 very specific cues that you can apply today to make your mace control more precise. One is to slow it down. Instead of making your switches or making your movements really fast and letting the mace kind of ride the lightning, as fun as that is, slow it down. And the second thing is always keep your eyes on the mace head as it moves. So I always know where the mace is in space around me, and I'm connecting my eyes to the mace and to the actual visceral experience of simply holding the mace, so that I'm getting my whole nervous system tuned to be able to precisely control every single movement. Again, this is huge. The 5th mistake is one that almost no one ever thinks about, even though it's incredibly important for Steel Mace flow across the board, just like our 4th mistake that we just spoke about. Now, this mistake has to do with something that all beginners never really think about, because they're always focused on just the steel mace, and that is our posture. A lot of beginners want to round their shoulders, bend over, or even hinge over, and in this way, we're actually inhibiting our practice of steel mace flow. Because with the steel mace, we always want to make sure that we can be swinging the mace in front of ourselves, that we have the ability to be able to drop the mace down past our legs, and we want to do all of this without hitting ourselves. And so if we round our shoulders too much, or we hinge over or curl our spine, then we're going to be inhibiting the trajectory of the mace, and it's going to be much easier to hit and harm ourselves with the mace. And so the costs of this obviously are that 1, you're gonna hit yourself, but 2, you're also gonna be slowing your own progress down, because you're not gonna feel safe enough to advance to the next more complex skill if you feel unsafe just moving the mace in front of your body. If you feel like there's instability, like you're gonna lose your balance, or if you're gonna hit yourself. And so you wanna make sure that you always have very tall upright posture, really nice braced core, and the shoulder blades down and back. In almost every exercise, this is the posture that we cue. Now, if this has been a helpful video for you, please send it to a friend, because I love expanding the Steel Mace community by expanding people's practices. And if you would like all of the extra lessons and details that I spoke about, you can download that free Steel Mace Essentials ebook right now by simply clicking the link in the description down below. So thank you very much for watching this video, and may the mace be with you.